Title: My wife kept telling me I was crazy. Turns out I wasn't. Throwaway because some people in my life know my main account. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and my wife is 32. We've been together for almost 10 years, married for 7. Up until about a year ago, I genuinely thought we had one of those marriages people envied. We weren't perfect, but we laughed a lot, traveled when we could, argued over stupid things like whose turn it was to do the dishes, and always ended up making up before bed. At least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, I feel stupid for missing all the warning signs. Maybe I didn't miss them. Maybe I just kept convincing myself there had to be a reasonable explanation because I loved her too much to believe she could betray me. Everything started changing after she got promoted. She suddenly became too busy for almost everything. Date nights disappeared. Weekend breakfasts stopped. She always had some new work emergency. At first I supported her. I even bragged about her promotion to my friends because I was proud of her. I cooked dinner more often, cleaned the apartment, picked up extra responsibilities because I figured that's what partners do. Then the lies started. Small ones? The kind that don't seem important until months later. She'd tell me she worked until midnight. Then one of her coworkers posted a group photo from a restaurant at 8 p.m. When I asked about it, she laughed. "Oh my God, are you seriously checking my coworker's Instagram now?" She made me feel ridiculous. I apologized. That became a pattern. Every question I asked somehow turned into my fault. "You're too insecure. You always overthink. I can't even have friends without you acting jealous." The weird thing? I wasn't jealous. I just wanted the truth. Then came her phone. She used to leave it lying around everywhere. Suddenly it never left her hand. She started sleeping with it under her pillow. She changed her password. Turned off message previews. Even took it into the shower. "Again?" I asked. "Again." She had an answer ready. "My coworkers keep sending confidential documents. My company updated its security policy. You watch too many cheating stories online." Every excuse sounded believable enough that I questioned myself instead of questioning her. She got colder too. Physical affection almost disappeared overnight. She'd pull away if I hugged her for more than a few seconds. She stopped saying, "I love you," first. Sometimes she'd go entire days barely speaking to me unless she needed something. One night I asked if everything was okay. She rolled her eyes so hard I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. "I'm just tired. That's it." "Yes. Stop trying to create problems." Those words stuck with me. Because I wasn't creating problems. I was reacting to changes that were impossible to ignore. A few weeks later, something happened that I still replay in my head. She came home around 1:30 in the morning. She smelled like expensive men's cologne. Not perfume. Not shampoo. Cologne. I noticed immediately. She noticed me noticing. Without me saying a single word, she snapped. "Don't even start. I wasn't going to. You were thinking it. I literally wasn't." She spent the next 10 minutes explaining something I never asked about. Apparently she'd hugged a coworker goodbye because he'd gotten engaged. Funny how guilty people volunteer explanations before questions are even asked. The next morning she acted like nothing happened. Meanwhile I sat at work unable to focus. I kept asking myself the same question. Am I losing my mind? Or is she lying to me? I wish I had trusted my instincts then. Because what happened next completely destroyed the life I thought I had. For the next couple of weeks, I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. I actually made a list on my phone of every explanation that didn't involve cheating. Maybe she was burned out. Maybe the promotion was more stressful than she'd admitted. Maybe we were just going through one of those rough patches every long-term couple talks about. I wanted to believe every one of those explanations. Then everything started happening at once. One Saturday morning she told me she had an emergency meeting on a Saturday at 8 a.m. I raised an eyebrow, and she immediately got defensive. Management doesn't care what day it is. Okay. Don't say it like that. Like what? Like you don't believe me. I just shrugged. She grabbed her keys, slammed the door hard enough to shake one of the picture frames in our hallway, and left. Something about it felt rehearsed. Around noon, I texted her asking if she wanted me to bring her lunch. No reply. 2 hours later she finally answered. Busy. That was it. One word. That evening she came home exhausted, complaining about meetings and spreadsheets. The problem? The next day one of her coworkers accidentally destroyed her entire story. I ran into him at the grocery store. He smiled when he saw me. Hey man! Haven't seen you in forever. We talked for a few minutes about random stuff. Then he asked, So, did you two enjoy your weekend? I laughed awkwardly. She worked yesterday. His face changed instantly. Worked? Yeah. Emergency meeting. He looked genuinely confused. Our office has been closed all weekend. Silence. Neither of us said anything for several seconds. He realized what he'd just done. I realized what she'd done. He quickly changed the subject. I pretended everything was normal. We both knew it wasn't. I drove around for almost an hour before going home. I couldn't stop gripping the steering wheel. I kept hoping there was another explanation. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe another department was working. Maybe. By the time I got home, she'd already prepared dinner. She smiled. Actually smiled. How was your day? I stared at her. She stared back. She didn't even look nervous. That's what hurt the most. She had become so comfortable lying that she could look me straight in the eyes without flinching. I almost confronted her right there. Instead I asked, Busy day at work yesterday? Without hesitation she nodded. So busy. What meetings? She blinked. What? You said you had meetings. Oh, different departments. Which ones? She paused. Barely half a second. But I noticed. Then she rolled her eyes. Seriously? I'm asking. Why are you interrogating me? I'm just making conversation. No, you're accusing me. There it was again. Every question became my crime. She stood up from the table. I'm done with this conversation. She walked away. That night I barely slept. Around 2 a.m., she quietly got out of bed. I kept my eyes closed. She picked up her phone and walked into the bathroom. The bathroom light turned on. I heard whispering. Not talking. Whispering. For nearly 20 minutes. When she came back, she thought I was asleep. She smiled at her phone before locking it. That image still makes my stomach turn. The next morning I couldn't let it go. I checked our shared phone bill online. We'd always shared the account because it was cheaper. There was one number. Hundreds of calls. Mostly late at night. Sometimes after midnight. Sometimes during hours she claimed she was working. I copied the number into Google. Nothing. No name. No business. Just an ordinary cell phone. Then, completely by accident, another clue landed in my lap. A few days later she asked me to print a document from her laptop because her printer at work wasn't cooperating. Her email was already open. I wasn't snooping. I honestly wasn't. But before I could print the file, a notification popped up. Not an email. A messaging app. Just one line. Last night was worth every lie. I can't stop thinking about you. My heart stopped. I froze. Then another message appeared. Does your husband suspect anything? I felt sick. I actually thought I was going to throw up. Before I could read anything else, she walked into the room. She saw the screen. She saw my face. Without saying a word, she slammed the laptop shut so hard I thought the screen had cracked. For about 5 seconds neither of us spoke. Then she did exactly what she'd always done. She got angry. What are you doing on my computer? I couldn't believe it. I came to print your document. You were spying on me. I just watched a message appear. You invaded my privacy. My hands were shaking. No, you lied to me. She stepped closer. Her voice became cold. If you trusted me, none of this would have happened. For one terrifying second, I almost believed her. But deep down, something had finally snapped. The lies no longer sounded convincing. They sounded desperate. And I realized I wasn't imagining anything. I just hadn't seen the full truth yet. I barely slept that night. She acted like nothing had happened. She made coffee the next morning, asked if I wanted eggs, complained about traffic, even reminded me to pick up dog food on my way home. Meanwhile, I felt like my entire life had split in two. One version was the marriage I thought I had. The other was whatever she had been hiding behind all those lies. For 3 days, we hardly spoke unless we had to. Every conversation felt fake. Every smile looked rehearsed. Then, on Thursday afternoon, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost ignored it. "I'm sorry to bother you," the woman on the other end said. "You don't know me, but I think you deserve to know what's been going on." My stomach dropped. She introduced herself as the girlfriend of a man named Ryan. The same Ryan who, according to my wife, was just a coworker. Apparently, he wasn't just a coworker. She had found messages between him and my wife after borrowing his tablet. At first she thought it was emotional cheating, flirting, inside jokes, secret lunches. Then she kept reading. It was much worse. She asked if we could meet somewhere public. Every instinct told me not to go. I went anyway. We met at a small coffee shop halfway across town. She looked just as exhausted as I felt. She didn't waste time. Without saying much, she slid her phone across the table. Photos. Videos. Screenshots. Hotel confirmations. Conversations stretching back almost a year. Pictures of my wife smiling in places she told me she'd never been. Messages complaining about me. Jokes about how easy I was to manipulate. One message hit harder than everything else. Ryan wrote, "Doesn't he ever question where you are?" My wife replied, "He does. Then I tell him he's insecure, and he apologizes. Works every time." I stared at that message for what felt like forever. That was the moment something inside me broke. Not because she had cheated. Not even because she'd lied. Because she'd turned my trust into a joke. Because every time I'd apologize for asking reasonable questions, she'd laughed about it with someone else. I thanked the woman, even though, "thank you," felt like the wrong words. Before we left, she quietly said, "I'm leaving him." I nodded. "So am I." I drove home in complete silence. No music. No podcasts. Nothing. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I already knew my marriage was over. I just didn't know how ugly the ending was about to become. That evening, she walked through the front door carrying shopping bags like it was any normal day. She smiled. "I got your favorite snacks." I looked at her for a long moment. Then I placed printed screenshots on the kitchen table. One by one. She glanced down. Her smile disappeared. For the first time in months, she looked scared. "What is this? You tell me." She picked up one of the pages. Her hands shook. Then, almost instantly, the fear turned into anger. "So you had someone spying on me?" I couldn't believe she was still trying. "Seriously? You invaded my privacy. You've been cheating on me for almost a year. It wasn't what it looks like." I actually laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because I'd run out of emotions. "It literally looks like cheating. You don't understand." "Then explain." She took a deep breath. "It just happened." "No. It happened hundreds of times. It wasn't serious." "So the hotels weren't serious? The lies weren't serious? Making fun of me wasn't serious?" She didn't answer. Instead, she tried something new. She started crying. Real tears. Or at least they looked real. I was unhappy. I nodded slowly. You could have told me. You never listened. I asked you every single week if something was wrong. Silence. You told me everything was fine. More silence. Then came the sentence I never thought I'd hear. I didn't think you'd actually leave. That was it. She genuinely believed I'd keep forgiving her. Keep apologizing. Keep believing every lie. I walked upstairs, packed a bag, grabbed my important documents, and headed for the front door. She followed me, crying harder now. Please don't go. You already left this marriage months ago. As I reached for the doorknob, she whispered something that made me stop. I'm pregnant. I turned around slowly. For one split second, I didn't know what to feel. Hope? Fear? Confusion? Then she added, I found out yesterday. I asked the only question that mattered. Is it mine? She opened her mouth and couldn't answer. That silence told me everything. I stood there waiting for an answer that never came. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. 15. She just kept crying. Finally, she whispered, I don't know. Those 4 words hurt more than everything I'd seen in the screenshots. More than the lies. More than the messages. More than finding out she'd spent nearly a year living a double life. Because until that moment, a small part of me still believed there was something left to save. There wasn't. I nodded once, picked up my bag, and walked out the front door. She called my name. She begged me to stay. She even promised she'd end things with Ryan immediately. I didn't turn around. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved into my brother's guest room. Some mornings I'd wake up convinced everything had been a nightmare. Then I'd remember. I'd see the screenshots in my head. I'd hear her saying, he apologizes. Works every time. And reality would hit me all over again. She texted constantly. Can we talk? Please answer. You're throwing away 10 years. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Then the messages changed. This is your fault too. You stopped paying attention to me. If you'd been a better husband, none of this would have happened. The apologies had turned back into blame. It reminded me exactly why I'd left. A week later, Ryan's girlfriend called me again. She wanted to let me know she'd confronted him too. Apparently, he had tried the same routine. It meant nothing. It was a mistake. I love you. She didn't believe him either. She also told me something I hadn't known. My wife wasn't the only person he'd been seeing. There had been another woman before her. And another one before that. When I heard that, I didn't feel satisfaction. I just felt empty. She had destroyed our marriage for someone who had never been loyal to anyone. The DNA test came a month later. It wasn't my child. I stared at the results for a long time before putting them back into the envelope. I expected relief. Instead, I felt grief. Not because I wanted the child to be mine under those circumstances, but because it marked the final death of the future I'd imagined. The family we talked about. The house we'd planned. The vacations we dreamed of taking with our kids someday. None of it was real anymore. The divorce wasn't easy. She fought over almost everything. Furniture. Savings. Even the coffee machine. It wasn't about the objects. It felt like she just wanted one last way to keep the conflict alive. At one hearing, she actually told the mediator that I had been emotionally controlling. When asked for examples, she said I questioned where she went at night. I almost laughed. Yes. I had asked. After she repeatedly disappeared until 1 or 2 in the morning. After months of lies. After countless broken promises. Even then, I'd never stopped her from going anywhere. I'd only asked for honesty. Eventually, the evidence spoke for itself. The messages. The hotel bookings. The financial records. The lies were impossible to defend. The divorce was finalized. When I walked out of the courthouse, I expected to feel victorious. I didn't. I just felt lighter. Like I had finally stopped carrying something that had been crushing me for a year. It's been almost a year now. Therapy helped more than I ever expected. So did my family. So did friends I'd unintentionally pushed away while trying to fix a marriage that only one person wanted to save. I still have trust issues. I still catch myself overthinking sometimes. But I've learned the difference between insecurity and intuition. They're not the same thing. If someone constantly makes you feel guilty for asking reasonable questions, if every concern somehow becomes your fault, if they keep changing the story, don't ignore it just because you love them. Love isn't supposed to make you doubt your own reality. The biggest lesson I learned is this: trust is built in small moments. It's also destroyed in small moments. Not just by one affair, but by every lie told to cover it up. If you're reading this because something in your own relationship feels wrong, don't rush to conclusions, but don't silence yourself either. Ask questions. Pay attention to actions instead of excuses. And remember that respecting yourself is not the same as giving up on someone else. Sometimes, walking away isn't the failure. Sometimes it's the first honest decision you've made in a very long time. Thanks for reading. I honestly never thought I'd be the person writing one of these posts, but if my story helps even one person trust their instincts without losing themselves in the process, then at least something good came out of the worst year of my life.